So it was about a year ago now that we first saw Husqvarna's Norden 901, and everyone's pretty excited. You know, we'd seen it at the EICMA show back in 2019, had huge raps, big excitement about this bike. I don't think I'd ever seen anything, quite to that extent. So Husqvarna's first foray into a genuine adventure bike. Obviously, they've had the 701, but their first adventure bike. So I would say, and look, it got a lot of really, really positive feedback. Everyone's comparing it to the 890 KTM Adventure and Adventure R, which it shares its engine and rolling chassis with, but it ran sort of the down-spec, I guess, Apex fork and shock, which was sort of equipped for the road. So I guess we'd sort of say we're even more excited now, because you probably will have heard that Husqvarna's brought out a 901 Expedition, an all 901 Expedition. So a little bit more off-road chops. Biggest, I guess, headlining the news is they've moved to Explore fork and shock. We've got bash guard, we've got like side panniers, soft racks, we've got heated seats and grips and bits and pieces. So 2,000 more, just shy of $28,000. But it's interesting that they've sort of made sure that they've kept the touring vibe of the thing alive by keeping a tall screen, etc. So we've come down, Steve Robertson, who's got an 890 himself, and we're down at his place down in the Southern Highlands, a couple of hours out of Sydney. Had a shakedown yesterday. Robbo's got an amazing track around here that goes from everything from sort of rocky to snotty to creeks to single track to some wide open stuff, and we're just about to shoot off on a mystery tour actually. Tell us, Robbo, where have you got? We're going down the south coast. That's about all I know.
That's right. We're just packed our pennies, loaded up, so it's a bit of an adventure.
So we're living off the bike, right?
We're living off the
no
bike.
Support vehicle this time around. Yeah.
So we're in the Highlands. We're going to head down to Batemans Bay area, so it's a bit fresh up in hills. So we'll test this heated seat, heated grips. Just go on a nice tour, just down to Batemans Bay, follow the Clyde River, and just have a good night down there.
Yeah, pretty nice part of the world down there too. So really looking forward to these things. We'll sort of check in with you guys later on tonight and give you a bit of feedback. We're obviously, I guess we should just sort of say that the two bikes we've got, the standard bike here, which comes standard with Pirelli Scorpion SDRs, but we've actually got a little bit more because we intend to do sort of 50% off-road, 50 road. So we've changed some tyres on this. I think we've got some Midas. You're familiar with the Midas range, a bit more aggressive for off-road.
E13, and then the new Rock Rider on the rear, which is a good all-rounder. So.
Yeah. And then this bike has actually just come back from Benny Grabham, sort of Fink, Aussie Enduro, Safari champion. He's been riding this for about 3,000 k's out in the outback. So this has got, the Pirelli Rally Scorpion, so a little bit more again off aggressive off-road tyres. But other than that, bikes are stock.
That's right.
Well, the fog's just lifting, Robbo, so we probably ought to make tracks. What do you reckon?
Let's do it. Fire it up. Get the heated seat on.
Let's go.
We'll go.
Here we are at beautiful Batemans Bay. Stellar day, blessed with some great weather for this 3-day ride. But the intention was to get in here last night in Batemans Bay, but seeing as we got in well after dark, we're just bringing to you a little bit of what we learned during yesterday's sort of 350 odd k's, which was a lot of fun. Thanks, Robbo. Thanks for taking us a little bit of a mystery tour up there, mate.
Yeah, we did. We got up pretty high there at one stage. It was a bit dark, foggy.
Yeah, right. I thought we might have been staying out there for a while.
Yeah, got a pretty low temperatures there at one stage.
But look, hey, it's a really good shakedown, mate. We had a half day on Friday where we sort of just make sure the settings are right, we're comfortable with everything in and around yours, tested all sorts of different terrain, etc. What were your takeouts, I guess, from that first day and a half?
Yeah, so really nice. It's definitely slightly a softer setting on that suspension, as we found out. Get a little bit of adjustment, just to get the preload up a little bit and a few different things just to...
Well, when you're saying softer compared to, you're used to your 890 KTM, so which runs the same Explore suspension, but compared to the standard 901 Norden, it's, the Apex stuff with a 43 more fork, much firmer, much more capable off-road.
Yeah. So I think it works really well, especially with this touring environment that we've been doing. We've done tar, we've done big hills, rolling fire trails, and just open gravel roads, farmlands. Like, it handles everything unbelievably.
Yeah, and look, I think the standard 901, I'm going to call it, was competent on the road, but found its limits off-road pretty quickly. Make this, I think, with the four stuff makes a huge difference, as you'd expect. According to the guys at Husqvarna, the set, even though the components is exactly the same between the KTM 890 and this Norden Expedition, it's still sort of more comfort settings, which is slightly softer. We found that, remember when we hit some erosion mounts and big rain washouts on that first day, we found it was bottoming both ends, right?
Yeah, the rear more than the front for me, but I think once we did that preload, it's really stiffened things up, and then we did that to carry the weight for the luggage too, didn't we?
Yeah.
So it made a lot of difference.
I was amazed how much, you've got your standard sort of clickers, 6mm sort of on the fork, so try 3 and then 6. And then I think we did, a couple of turns of preload, which is kind of really easy on that little worm gear on the rear. And even with the addition of panniers, when we loaded some weight up for Saturday, the erosion mounts or even G-outs, so you're hitting hard, that was bottoming out, on our shakedown ride, was pretty damn good yesterday.
It's good. So funnily enough too, when we did the adjustments to yours, we went to this one, which Grab had rode in the desert.
Yeah.
It had already been raked on the suspension. The compression was already in, the preload was sort of already there. So I think we thought most more aggressive riders will end up in that situation, giving that preload adjustment.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So they left the bike back, came back from, I think Grab had done, with Adam Ream, he'd done sort of 3,000 k's out in the middle of nowhere. But like you say, when it's raked out, you mean as in the forks dropped down, sort of, I guess about
really flush there,
8 mil, so it's almost flush raked out. And yet you sort of said things still steered. It didn't really compromise.
No,
it wasn't pushing wide.
It didn't feel like coming in last night in the dark.
Yeah,
down through the mountains. So
well, speaking about that, that was our second use of the dilly bag warmer, the heated seat, which is like a creature comfort bordering on luxury. How funny was it? We talked about it because you've obviously, once you turn it on, you got, I think, low, medium, and toasty in the derriere department, which is very nice. Apparently, that can extend to the pillion passenger. And then same thing. You got 3 settings on the grips as well. So it's sort of it's creature comfort.
It's really hot, isn't it? You didn't need it that.
Yeah, no, I had to lift off occasionally just to give it a little bit of air conditioning effect. Yeah. But look, in all seriousness, though, they're good, They're the little things that when you're on an adventure ride, when you're covering big Ks, having that comfort, like our cameraman over there didn't have it, and he came in. It wasn't the coldest night, but it was. It was icy yesterday morning, so it was well worth it. Hey?
Well, it's good. Well, like this too. Coming back in the night, tucking in, it's a bit cold. This screen doesn't buff it. It's very quiet, and the lights are amazing too. Yeah. So I had no trouble with vision. How about you?
No, I love it. This screen I was in sort of 2 minds. When I'm sitting down off-road, you're sort of looking through here, right, where it turns and it distorts your vision a little bit. But 90% of the time when I'm off-road, I'm standing, right? So that's interesting that we put a hand behind here. It feels like bugger all air comes through here, but I think it makes some laminar effect. So bloody good compared to, both the KTM, 890 or either option and the standard version of this. Really good on freeway. It just gives it that protection, so it's got that extra layer of touring comfort. And the lights are amazing. We got, you'll see some footage. We got up there in some fog where we got, I want to say lost. But not only the headlight bloody good, but the fog lights, which you can turn on and off with a little switch here. They're a really nice option. And again, talking about headlight quality, something on a bike like this where safety's key. I think it's a really good thing. The other thing I noticed yesterday, obviously we're mucking around, this has got some extra electronics. Well, first of all, you've got your connectivity unit that the 901, Norden 901 standard doesn't get, but also the Explore. And I know you run it all the time, so you got your 1 through 9 limited slip.
Yep.
Just reinforces for me the range. The electronics can take you from a doughy,
there's
nothing, like a
big difference. It's like 30-40% difference.
So the trick is obviously getting to the point where you can toggle between those really quickly, get your settings set up in each sort of, and it only takes a sort of day or two to get used to it.
Yeah, once you get used to it, it's quite good to use.
Yeah. But you were saying even compared to the KTM, a little bit more intuitive and a bit more obvious even, just
this new dash works a lot better, it's a lot clearer. Yeah, seems to not going in and out as much. Yeah.
Well, Robert, we had a few issues. I think we flat landed a couple of erosion mounts yesterday and had a little bit of issue with a mount on the pannier bag. Those things are really good, but I think it is something that Husky's going to have to look into, just sort of how robust those mounts in the bags themselves are. But we strapped those up, got them to tight. Where are we heading off to today, mate? Sort of back to the Highlands.
Hopefully it'll be more dark.
We got any more surprises, mate?
No, we'll just follow this wide river up from Nelligan and go in the back of Milton, up over the hill into Robbo, into Kangaroo Valley and home.
Yeah, of course.
So it'll be quite scenic today.
Yeah,
beautiful waterfalls, a few other things.
Ooh, nice. Beautiful part of the world. So once again, we'll sort of check in tonight, see if we can give a bit of a wrap up. I think by the time we get there, we better get some fuel, by the way. You know, we will have done the best part of sort of 700 Ks, so it'll give us a really good feel. We're going to be lucky to hang on to this thing for another couple of weeks, just to, you know, to sort of bring you a little bit more detailed insight. But really starting to get my head around what this bike's all about now, what it's designed for, what it's capable, and it's all, you know, it's all heading in the right direction. Very Well, Robbo, we just got back from, well, it's been 2.5 days, but the last couple of days on the road. Best part of 700 Ks. I think the first thing he said is, well, if you don't know him by now, you'll never know him. So we did a bit of everything. You know, I would say of that 700 Ks, there's probably, well, definitely more than 50% off-road in terms of time, not so much with kilometres, but in terms of time we spent off-road. So really good shakedown on the bike. So I guess the fact that, you know, we didn't spend a lot of time in the last couple of days where we weren't on the bikes. Let's talk about ergos. Let's talk about what things like to ride with, because my ass feels pretty good.
That's
really good.
While I was riding along too, I was just thinking it's a pretty complete touring bike. This, like, with out of the box, it comes with everything you need to be comfortable. Like we say, like this screen is unreal for the long hauls. The seat was super comfortable. I've risen this one by 20 mil.
20 mil, yeah.
It's a bit wide, I suppose, a little bit at the back compared to some, but I think all in all, the comfort was unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. And I think that's with the, you know, with the Norden 901 is the big thing. Sort of, it's really, they're pushing this idea compared to its 890 KTM cousin, you know, which has got a much slimmer seat. They're pushing this idea that it's comfortable on long hauls, and it absolutely is, you know. So I ran the seat, I tried upper and lower sort of thing, and it was a really interesting experiment, you know, because lower I didn't mind, and I liked that on the road. With the seat up, interesting because it is so wide and it flares out so much. I actually found that impeded your movement around the bike a little bit. It is a bit thicker through the girth than say the KTM 890. But when you tried to move back, so I ended up going back down again on that. So, but I think what I will say is I think I want to say for $320 odd, you get that single piece seat. So, you know, we haven't been able to get one of those from Husqvarna, but we're going to do that hopefully over the next couple of weeks, just to get a bit of a sense of that, because I think that, you know, for a bike that's got some more off-road chops now, would be a really good thing just to give you that movement back and forward.
That's right. Well, I even had a short stint behind you this morning.
On a pillion,
yeah. On the pillion, I even said it's actually probably felt more comfortable than this.
Yeah.
So that's really good for your pillion passenger too.
Interesting, a year ago, when with the, you know, the standard Norden 901, that quite a few people sort of end up raising the seat because it was a little bit cramped. So this bike, by virtue of its suspension, moving from the Apex to the Explore suspension, you got 20 mil more suspension travel, you get 20 mil more ground clearance, and 20 mil more seat height at the same time. But that sort of seat to foot peg is still a little bit cramped. So, you know, which just again reiterates, I'd really like to try that sort of taller single piece seat. I think that'd be really interesting on this bike, sort of looks aside. Although I don't think you can heat the seat, single piece seat. So swings and roundabouts.
But I think, like, getting off the bike, we were pretty good. Like, overall, like we did a bit of a longer haul just on a straight section getting home, where you do get a bit tight in your knees if you're sitting in that one spot for a while. But for everything else though, I think it works really well for a touring bike.
Absolutely. And look, before we sort of throw out what we, you know, a executive summary, mate, spent a little bit of time over a couple of beers in the workshop, looking over these things, mucking around with it, you know. Everything's pretty damn good, high quality. We talked a little bit about the problem with the
brake, which is the same on the 890. You've just got to pull all the side cover off and get the adjustment, and then put it all back on to test it. And if you haven't got it correct the first time, you have to take it off. So it's only small things like that. But then we go to the air filter too. Like but he's been talking to the Unifilter guys, and they're saying that they come with
That's
the
sort of like a
pre-filter
yeah, with
that goes
a
on.
dot.
So
Yep.
we're not sure how they come out of the shop,
Well, I
if
guess
they're on or they're off. But
the point is, I guess anyone with an 890 now is mindful that you know, they've got to put it in properly. They've got to understand how to put it in properly, use that pre-filter, and just be, I guess, a bit more diligent than the average adventure bike. You know, that's something
That's
that 890 guys have got
it's
to
definitely something you got to look at quite regularly compared to some like BMWs and things like that are getting a lot of different Ks, because this being at the rear pulls a lot of dust up, and it's a really dusty day. You do have to, you know, do a little bit more maintenance than some others. But
yeah. And then that little part you're nursing right there, the mirrors, yeah. Not Husqvarna's finest hour. Like I think you said a little while ago, maybe 10 years ago, that was sort of a little bit
maybe 20 years ago.
Look, it's one of those things that comes off. Maybe it's got a 14 or a 15 or something like that, but they come off, and then you've got to have tools with you to do it. So I think that's one thing for a bike. Otherwise, from a really good quality finish point of view, I think that's sort of one component that sort of jumps out as could be better.
Yeah, a couple of small things, but this dash, it was really good. Like as more you use it over the days, I found that a lot easier than using the previous one.
Yes.
So it's similar, it's the same cluster, I guess, but the ease of using it was better, I thought.
So let's kind of try and see if we can encapsulate all this, Robbo. It's hard because it's so much bike and it's so versatile, and like I think today remember that little section where we were sort of charging through that sort of undergrowth, and we all came out of there and we went, man, we wouldn't have been faster on a FE 501. Well, I said that too, and it
right.
felt like that, right?
It's
okay,
so
if you run a bit hot into a corner, you can't exactly back it in and wash off speed by tipping it on the here, but so planted, so agile. And then on the flip side, you're going down the freeway with this, with like with all the creature comforts of the heated grips and seat and stuff, and you're like as comfortable as anybody, doing $1.20 down the freeway.
Yeah.
So
still to be mindful sometimes. They're a heavier machine, but they don't feel, compared to us, your smaller bikes, but you can still get going exactly the same and feel as comfortable.
They blow me away for something that it's
be
almost
respectful at sometimes.
But it's almost like once you get over 20 kilometres an hour, you go along in gravel and it's a bit like, oh Jesus, but it sort of hits its magic 20 kilometres an hour. It's like, gee, this is planted,
Yeah.
And the thing that blew me out, we filled up a couple of times with that sort of split, I guess, pear-shaped fuel tank, I suppose. We did it empty in some tight stuff, and then we did it with the thing full. You don't feel all the difference because it carries its weight so low. So that's a really big thing for me. So look, I think just trying to wrap it up, and it's really, I think we got a pretty good feel for the personality of this bike. On paper, when the thing comes out, it's like, oh great, Norden, the Norden 901 it was really well received by the market, I think. But for a lot of people who looked at those 43mm Apex forks and the lack of adjustability in the shock, they sort of said, well, if I want to go off-road, okay, well, what are my options? I'm going to find my limits quicker than I thought. So, so on paper, when it comes out with, you got 20mm more ground clearance, you got 20mm more suspension travel, you got more adjustability in the Explore, fork and shock. The preload stuff, which we talked about this morning in Bateman's Bay, that gave it some real versatility in the thing. And then you got this big bloody bash plate and you're like, okay, this is what it looks like. This bike's designed to, be much more off-road oriented, right?
Mm.
But then by the same token, I don't know, we talked about it before, it also has a whole lot of stuff starting at the screen, going through the electrics, with the heated seats, all these bits
gives it the touring
that suddenly
aspect.
make it a better touring bike as well.
Like I was saying, I think it comes very complete as a setup straight out of the box. Like you're not going to add much to it. Maybe, guys are like their GPSs and things like that. I still run, my quad lock on it, but you don't really need to add much more to do either variant of riding.
The component spec is pretty damn complete. And I suppose, look, you really can't talk about that talk about component spec until you put it in the context of price, right? So I think we may have alluded to right at the sort of start, the difference between the Norden 901 and then this new Expedition with a whole lot of bits and pieces is $2,000, give or take.
Yeah.
We added up all the bits and pieces. I think that was about $3,000 before you even brought the suspension into it. So it's a no-brainer at the moment. If you're comparing 23 model, 901 Norden versus 901 Norden Expedition, no-brainer. You know.
The time you're buying racks and panniers and all your bits and pieces.
Better off-road, better on the road, and just a more all-round versatile package.
Yeah, the suspension still serves that nice plushness touring as well. So
But look, I think I should make a comment at this point that you know, the 22 model Norden, which was the first one, I think at the moment sits on dealer floors about $500 less than the 23 model, but they've got a run out deal on that. They're saving about $3,200, which then ends up making it about a $6,000 differential, which in my mind, given the difference in component spec between the standard and the Expedition, is probably a fairer representation of you know, that price differential. So let's put it in the broader market. You know, like there's a lot of, it's a sort of, it's an increasingly populated market at the moment. You know, you've got things from sort of the foray for around 20 grand. You've got a, you know, Touareg for 22 and a half or something like that from Aprilia. Ducati 24. You know, BMW, the 850 BMW, which is sort of, you know, I think that ranges from sort of 23 to 25, something like this. So, is there anybody obvious we've missed off on that list?
Honda, yeah.
No, we didn't mention the Honda. So sort of Honda Africa Twin. Again, they range between sort of 23 and 29, depending on spec. And you know, and that's the interesting thing about some of those other brands. They've got an introductory rate, you know, and they get you in, but you roll out the door a lot more. Oh, and of course we should mention the Tenere World Raid, which is about 25 even, and we spoke to a dealer on the way up here who said no one rolls out the door without putting $3,000 of bits and pieces on it. So you're talking about a comparative price to this, but like without all that electronics. You know?
That's right.
So that's the other thing, you know, you get the connectivity unit with the Expedition as well, which gives you turn-by-turn navigation, you've got music, you've got call in, call out.
Bluetooth, your headset.
Yeah. So this Expedition is sitting on the top. If you take those smaller capacity bikes out, let's call it a sort of $23,000 to $28,000 sort of price window, you know, with most of them sort of in the middle or on the upper end of that. I think Husqvarna is comfortable and confident that offers really good value for money. And I'd got to say, you know, given our last couple of days experience,
it's pretty good.
It can warrant it. So, been a really good, well, thanks, first of all, Robbo. Thanks, mate.
We had, good to have you down.
It was an awesome ride. No one put a bar on the ground. Oh, I did when we went in the single track today. We just put a bar on the ground gently, but...
It was only turning it round, though, when we were stuck in a gully, but you weren't actually on it.
No, that's right. And we didn't get lost today like we did yesterday, but...
Expedition, mate.
We've got another couple of weeks on this bike, so we're going to spend a little bit more time mucking around, you know, mucking around with those filters, that kind of stuff. But super good experience, really good to get an insight into the personality of this bike. And, you know, I've got to say, coming in thinking it was just, oh, this is just going to be better off-road. But, you know, to see a bike now that's better in both as a tourer, which I guess is its primary objective, but also as a design philosophy, but also much better, you know, in terms of off-road capabilities. And, you know, it's extended its limits massively. I think it's props to Husqvarna for doing something pretty special with this. And
hey, to work.
How many people asked us about the thing over the course of the last couple of days?
Yeah, well, it is. What is this? Gee, that's a nice looking bike, wasn't it? It was Braidwood everywhere we stopped.
Everywhere we stopped. And that's the thing. It's a conversation starter, it's a head turner.
Everybody was asking.
And we're talking about it, you know, pretty much every adventure bike. I don't know, because the older demographic maybe, but it's very subtle, right? They're little brands and stuff. But, you know, the Husky got this big ass H on the shrouds, and it's kind of cool. They're loud and proud. We're here. It's been,
you know, look a little.
We've been owned by KTM for 10 years, but now we're a serious player in the adventure market. And I think, you know, the thing's good.
Definitely a head turner, wasn't it? For a lot of people everywhere we went. So that's always good for them.
You bet.
For Husqvarna.